I'm not sure if you could follow in German.
Bits and pieces, but I made my time. It was a good lesson learned, and there's some variances of Dutch to German, so it didn't sound
Yeah.
complete foreign. And before we get to the final roundtable, I just put a quick poll that everyone should have received. If there is a need for a short 3 to 5 minute break, even if it is to grab a glass of water or not. So if you could just submit the vote, I think you should be able to see in polls the vote and see if there is a need for a break or not. In the meantime, Marco, what was your main takeaway from this session? Since I could follow only parts of it, what would you say that was the most particular or interesting thing?
So when I combine what Johanna also brought into her keynote, like there are cars which higher electric range, and the fact that I can maybe get the money reimbursed that I have maybe when I have a company car or so. Yeah, so shout out to my team lead. Then maybe driving an EV car is not that far away from me.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
we need to align that in next weeks or months within the team. Yeah, let's see what's possible.
All right. Fantastic. So I hope that all our roundtable moderators are present. I saw from the poll that it's clear that everyone is with enough energy to keep on going. I see that Wulf is already joining, and we can also have Christian and Piotr joining the stage, and if not, bring them in. But today we have three incredible panelists to talk about why Europe does not need more chargers, but just operators that understand each other better. We have with us already joining Piotr, which is the managing director at HOCHTIEF. I have to pronounce this really well with German.
HOCHTIEF, right?
HOCHTIEF,
I don't know, Piotr,
Ladepartner.
if you are sitting in my hometown in Essen currently or a different location.
No, actually, today I'm speaking to you from Manchester, but in principle, yes, we are based in Essen. So.
Okay, nice. Yeah. So Piotr, you have over 20 years at HOCHTIEF. We bring a deep expertise on infrastructure and PPP projects across Europe. And of course, I know that today you're leading efforts to scale the charging infrastructure, not just in Germany, but internationally. We have with us also Christian and Wulf. Christian, also CEO of Hubject, a key player that is enabling seamless EV roaming across Europe and beyond. And you also joined us last year. So welcome back to the Fast Lane Summit, Christian. And lastly, Wulf, true industry pioneer in IoT and e-mobility, founder of DXBe Management, and of course, playing an incredible strategic role at Ionity, Digital Charging Solutions, other key players. So a lot of decades of expertise in this group. And today, how we're going to do it is that we discuss a few critical questions across the role of e-mobility, the future trends. For the audience, same rules of engagement. You can ask your questions. We're going to have these a bit more organic, but nonetheless, we're going to have some questions that will be directed at one of the panelists, and then we're going to have a sort of debate around that. So today, I would like to start with you, Wulf, and it starts with a question around the profitability of the charging infrastructure. If there is a trend where the profitability will shift from just hardware deployment to operational intelligence. So do you see in your point of view that we are investing too much too early? And do you think the business case will shift from just more stations to actually smarter networks? So what's your stance here?
So first of all, thanks for joining the conference and having me. My name is Wulf. I'm working in the industry since more than 15 years on EV charging, and so from that point of view, did a lot in EV on the platform side as well as on the hardware side over the last years. So combining both areas, say it like this. What I have seen in the last, let's say, 2.5 years, when we had some tremendous changes in the industry, especially starting in Germany very early, and how I say the waves or the tsunami behind has reached now even other countries. And from that point, I would say we see lots of project right now focusing on operational excellence. Optimizing the ecosystem, optimizing the hardware. You started maybe 10 years ago with 50 kilowatts, what you learned from Johanna this afternoon, and grow up to 350. You'll take a look into profitability as well as return on invest. So if you're running a charger for more than 7 years, like Ionity, you exactly know, for example, when do we have reached the return on invest, when do we have to, how we say, replace the charger. That's one part on the hardware side. And the same what we have learned is also on the software side coming up since a while. Lots of tender processes on selecting new backends. I would say starting in 2021, 22, when the first, how you say, 5, 6, 7 years of EV charging were already done by lots of CPOs. And I think this is the way what we see right now. Yes, it is optimization, and that means also bringing the costs down, speeding up, especially also the rollout processes. We have also seen during COVID times, we had lacks in supply chain. Lots of companies have ordered mass of high power chargers. Let's make an example, or chargers in general, because it was critical to get them. And so far, I know already that there are some locker rooms being placed with chargers from 2021, 2022, which have not been installed yet. So that's the situation that we see, that the, how we say, the early ordered charger will now be deployed into the market. That's the easy question. Across, let's say, all markets. What we have seen, if it's the Norwegian part in Norway, which started very early with the activities, or have, well, I would say, the highest rate of acceptance. And even if you go down to markets like Portugal or to Spain, we see lots of activities in improving of the hardware and software.
Yeah. Thanks. Piotr, Christian, do you have a complementary or a different point of view? Is still about operational excellence. There's quite a difference of the stage of the markets. But what would be your point of view? Is it in the same direction? Is really about all this operational intelligence and smarter networks, or we are still missing out a lot more stations to get to that threshold?
Okay, I don't know, Christian, if you want to start. Otherwise, I think, you know, there is no one simple answer to this question, depending on first on the country where you go. I mean, there is a difference whether you are traveling along the A2 in Germany or you're traveling through rural Scotland. Yeah, so ask the Scottish people and the CPOs in Scotland whether they are ready to deploy expensive infrastructure in those rural areas, but it is still necessary. So there is still a lot of work to do, and much as I like all those discussion about data and smarter networks, first we have to get infrastructure on the ground. Having said that, I strongly believe that infrastructure as such, charging spots, charging stations, it will become a new asset class, and we will see a completely different development where finally we don't have just the CPOs do it out of our own pockets, but like we do with other infrastructure, whether in terms of transport or energy, some other players with big pockets can support us for it. Yeah. And that's, I think, where we will see a lot of development. And you see already first signs of that when you look at I don't know, I shouldn't mention petrol stations in this round, but I think they are perfect examples, because suddenly you see the new, well, let's call it new players on the market, like Circle K taking over from Total, where, you know, people or companies say we don't need to cover the whole value chain. We concentrate just on part of it. And this is also what we are, I think, expecting in terms of charging infrastructure.
Thanks. Maybe, Christian, as you add your point of view, it will be interesting to also see your point of view on the fact that there is already hundreds of network standards and policies, but there isn't a true seamless unified experience. The same way that Johanna said, and some of the questions here. So the CPOs who solve friction and not coverage will define the next era. Is European roaming still a myth? And should we move this from national compliance to the user-centric coordination? What's your view on these? In liaison with what we've been discussing about operational excellence. So yeah, eager to hear your point, especially with this add-on of the European roaming approach.
Sure, happy to do so. So from my point of view, I think great topics already mentioned by Wulf and Piotr. Thank you. What we shouldn't forget to mention is that we are all living and working in a quite complex ecosystem, right? Hugo, you just mentioned numbers, hundreds of CPOs. I would even say thousands of CPOs in Europe, very small and very big ones, all at the same time. And this describes a bit the complexity. Not to forget the mobility service providers, right? The client-facing service providers, which are then providing the charging solutions. We have OEMs, and we have many more stakeholders in this very complex ecosystem. And that probably also describes a bit why it is so challenging for us to change something here, and then it's already impacting the customer experience because it needs to be transferred in a complex value chain with different roles, different maturity levels, different financial backgrounds, different levels of innovation and software and hardware to great impact on the customer side. On the other hand, we already have established this when we talk about basic charging, right? So I would say charging nowadays works all around Europe. Of course, we need to discuss pricing. We need to talk about reliability, but in most cases, I can go from A to B, and it somehow works with a lot of room for improvement, of course. And I think that's something we also should reflect on, that we all together as an industry, we have already set up a complex but working ecosystem. But of course, that's nothing we can pause now because we need to move forward. You mentioned topics on utilization. Of course, that's a thing, right? We see that charging stations are very differently utilized. Yes, location is here critical, but also, as Wulf mentioned, the maturity, the reliability of the used solutions. When you're using a charger from 2021, that's probably already a bit outdated because we see that nowadays we talk about new protocol versions, right? We talk about OCPP 2.0.1 and 2.1. I know adoption of these new versions is very low, but if you want to move forward, improving reliability, improving customer experience, improving the way we're exchanging real-time data, we need to talk about this. We all understand that this is not coming by itself, right? Nobody's motivated, spending a lot of money and a lot of time of our precious software developers to just implement a new protocol version. There needs to be a specific value behind it. Frankly speaking, it's quite often not that easy to have a good answer on this, especially taking into account that we have around about 1 million public charging stations out there, and it's nearly impossible to make a change related to this 1 million charging stations, right? We have a lot of legacy chargers. We see this when we talk about plug and charge, when we talk about ad hoc payment, when we talk about digital connectivity. That's great, and I think most people know how much as Hubject we believe in topics like plug and charge and digital connectivity. But we also need to reflect, it won't work with every charger from the beginning, it will take time. And I think this additional perspective, we now understand more and more that we also need to think about how to include legacy solutions, because in the end, normal EV drivers won't care, right? They just want to have a seamless charging experience, and they don't care what protocol is behind and if it's auto charge or plug and charge or whatever. They just want to make it happen. And I think this is becoming more and more a core topic of our discussions, how we can establish new innovative solutions without losing the connection to existing infrastructure and existing vehicles as well. Same story here. And I think the market is moving forward, but probably, again, we need to talk about the velocity of our way moving forward, right? I think we all agree it should happen faster, but reflecting also on the operational challenges, I think we need to bring both perspectives in a good ratio.
Okay, good. And Piotr, do you see this? Of course, it's natural that the seamless user experience is a must, but do you already see some of these innovations happening without trumping the legacy networks in your own experience? And if not, do you see a different path forward? I don't know if Wulf, you want to go first, or Piotr again?
I can jump in.
Okay.
I would say that technology and innovation is being blocked even by regulation. And if you take a look here in the back, I have energy right books, hundreds here in the office. So from that point, this is one of the, how I say, contrary approach. On the one hand side, you want to become innovative, you want to bring, how I say, new services into the market. On the other side, you have this lecture here, which I have to run through, and this makes it, in general, I would say, and this is only for German energy law. So if you take this as one of the activities in Germany only, so you know what it means if you go European wide with new services. And I think Piotr can confirm that from his experience, because he's also not only active in Germany, as far as I know, or even Christian, of course, as well.
Absolutely. Every new country is a new adventure. And if we think we are complicated, or if we think we need long lead-in times in Germany, you don't want to know how long we are waiting for one grid connection, for example, on a project in Greece, where I think we had now the first anniversary. So we have all those problems, we do, but still we solve them and we move them forward. Talking about innovation, Hugo, I think there are two hearts in me for that, because as we see it on all those rounds, we are all early adopters, we are all innovators, and we are happy to use apps, we understand the system. But then most of us EV drivers of the early age, we had this experience with suddenly we stay at a charging station and there is this guy with gray hair who just bought his first second-hand electric vehicle and he just wanted to charge and he doesn't know where to start. You know? So we have also to embrace those people and help them enter this market. Therefore, even though I try to do everything with my smartphone, I have to accept that there are people who try to do it in a different way. And, you know, we can try to explain it to them, we can run campaigns, but still, if for them the easiest way is to use their contactless card, then we should, at least in limited amount, allow it to them, especially there where it has to be quick, like on the motorway. You know, we can argue whether we need it for AC charging, because then there is more the question of the cost. But on the motorway, when they are to go fast, we have to give them different options and not only rely on innovations. Maybe, again, as Christian said, in 5 years, the thinking will be completely different and we don't need it anymore. And then we will start discussing, why did we invest in all those credit card terminals? But today, to get the mass market acceptance, there is no way around it.
Maybe just to add a bit of a, let's say, contrary perspective, of course, what else to expect. Piotr, I totally agree. I think we need to reduce complexity for recharging electric vehicles. I totally agree, and mass market customers have different needs than early adopters. My only concern is how much needs this to be enforced, right? Because ad hoc payment, I think that's a good example. We have now a regulation in place in Germany since 9 years enforcing ad hoc payment. And I'm not saying that this doesn't make sense or something like that. But the reality is, and this was just confirmed by the German Minister of Transport, we have 5% usage rate of direct payment solutions in Germany. So therefore, my concern is a bit that even if we're enforcing this, and Germany is one of the most relevant EV markets in Europe, only 5% of the people in Germany are using ad hoc payment. And I think that's exactly where we need to, let's say, also get smarter in our industry to combine all these different needs, because I'm not saying that ad hoc payment doesn't make sense. Of course, there are customers who are willing to use it, but with 5% market share, does it make sense to regularly enforce it and increase complexity and expenses and everything like that for all the CPOs, right? Because it's quite costly to install payment and credit card readers. It's quite complex also to fulfill regulation, so you need to then probably outsource topics to payment service providers and so on and so forth. And still, 95% of the customers like to use MSP-based solutions. I'm not an advocate here for any of these solutions. I'm just saying, let's give choices to customers. I totally agree that this is the right way, but let's set them up in a way that they are working better together, like digital payment solutions, right? That would be a great way because it's very close to how other charging stations already are working, right? But putting physical terminals in place, which also increase the issues of not working well because there's a different SIM card and so on and so forth. I think that's probably something I would like to tackle, saying, let's do a hoc payment, but let's do it digitally so that it's much more scalable for all of us to move forward in our business models.
Wolf, do you have a tiebreaker here?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. When I started with Ionity 8 years ago, I had some Norwegian colleagues, and they all told me, Wolf, you have to offer SMS payment because this is the top notch of the industry. And I said, no, forget it. It's a break from my side because I was coming from a telco. Working for Telefonica more than 10 years almost, and I know that this kind of media is the wrong way to collect the money. I would say because you have also a collector, and this is the same if you're making credit card payment. Someone takes an average of revenue from your money what you collect at the end of the day. So you must keep it, I would say, simple. You should keep it on a way where everyone understands it. And we talked about the don't say it like this, like Christian said, but it's not working well. But it's positive that last year we had an average of 1% charging with plug and charge in Germany. This year, what I heard, maybe you can confirm it, or Christian especially, it's been doubled. So you see, if it's next year even been doubled from the amount of cards, then we are on the right way. And at the end of the day, these 5% or 8% of how to say people, which you mentioned, Christian, they will be gone. So they will be moved somewhere to other, let's say, payment methods or other authorization messages, which are much better or easier to understand. Then, well, I do it in a different way. Try to build my own ecosystem, and that's what we have also seen by some players, that they try to, how we say, well, build new roads, but not with the right, how we say, not on the right infrastructure or with the right infrastructure. And ad hoc payment, yes, I would say if you are coming from Norway or Denmark driving to Germany, you have a local card. You cannot pay for with that card on a German charger. Then ad hoc payment, I would say it's necessary. Yes, you have to go this way until you haven't found an overall European solution, I would say. And this is the way I would say where we were all working on until 2030. And I think, well, we're gonna see some improvements within the next years. I hope as well.
Yeah, and if on my end, not as a moderator, but as bringing the consumer perspective, the tendency tends to be that the consumer wants the path to least friction, and the part of whatever is complex doesn't relate to the user. He doesn't care about the complexity. He cares about the experience of enjoying, of moving to an electric car. The same way that it evolved the way that we pay for the simplest things at a restaurant. At least in the Netherlands, there was money. From money that went to the payment terminals. There was payment terminal innovation. How many payment terminals from a consumer point of view exist today? There's like maybe 10, 15 payment terminals that you can choose. Even there is mobile applications you can pay phone to phone. And that kept iterating to the point that, at least in some European countries, and it speaks to the fragmentation, and being Portuguese, for example, I cannot rely on digital cards in Portugal. I have to have always money with me. Whereby in the Netherlands, I might be excluded from going to a cafe because they don't accept money. So this disparity is incredible. But as Christian mentioned, and you, Wolf, and even Piotr, the having the option helps. I remember being stuck at a charging station that the card was working.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Hello, everyone. We are back live after this odd situation. I see that Christian is joining. Wulf should be joining soon. For the ones that had the incredible patience to resume again and join the event, this is one of those intern situations that I could talk about, where someone tried to leave the event and press the end event rather than leave event. So they ended the event for all of us. No worries, we'll find out. We'll not make much of a hard time for whoever click on that button, but we'll find who they were and make sure that they don't have the right permissions next year. But other than that, we are back here, and we were just discussing about the consumer experience. So I would say that we wrapped that to one question, and then we had already 2-3 questions from the audience, which I still have from the other group. So I would say that we go over those. And for the ones that have questions, please just, again, address the questions here. But we were talking about the consumer experience. I think, Wulf, you were having a point. I see that you are here, but with the camera issue. But nonetheless, I would say that you had a point that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, so I'm just struggling with the system. Maybe Piotr and Christian can take over. So
Yeah,
to fix the camera.
I wanted to make one more final sentence on that. You can imagine it all a bit like a slider between convenience and price. And this slider, it's not in a fixed point. Sometimes it has to go fast. Then the price doesn't matter. That's usually the case when you're on the motorway, traveling. Sometimes it's more about the price. Like if it's an AC charger around the corner from the flat where you live, somewhere in downtown Berlin, and you do it every other night, you want it to be cheap. So if the price goes down, you are ready to spend a bit more time on starting your charging process. If the price goes up, you want to have an absolutely seamless experience. That's, I think, the logic behind it, and that's how the human behavior is.
That is a great way of putting it. Christian, do you have any last words on this topic?
Yep. Sorry that I'm using the opportunity to reflect a bit on this, but I would propose to have a third dimension to this slider, which is reliability. Because we just spoke about the mass market customer experience. We all want to get there, no worries. And however customers are paying for it, we will find it out. But reliability is, from my point of view, probably the bigger obstacle we are facing right now, because all our statistics are saying us, even in great networks, that only 4 out of 5 charging stations are working properly at the first time trying. And this is something we need to solve, right? And again, the reason why we are facing this kind of reliability challenge is complex ecosystem, different maturity levels, different understandings and how protocols are implemented. And that's not only happening on the charging infrastructure side. That's the same with OEMs as well, right? There we see exactly a similar challenge, that to make it work together requires more, maybe even orchestration, let's see. But this is where we need to get better, because 80% is just not enough for mass market. For us, it's okay, because we're anyway trying 10 times until charging is working, because we know somehow a bit what could be the challenge. But mass market customers, after they have found out how they could pay for charging, they will definitely also want to make it happen as reliable as possible. And I'm not talking about 100%, but something like 95, 98 is definitely what we need to aim for. Otherwise, we will see a lot of statements again on social media where people are saying, I should have better stick to my diesel car because that's something which is working. And it's a fair statement, frankly speaking. It's not yet as good as it should be.
Welcome back, Wulf.
Thanks a lot.
So as we pick up some of the questions of the public and I let them share some of the questions that were on the other chat. One last question, and this is more about, because we talked about innovation, the experience, and now independently of EV charging or not, we know that there is a lot of buzzword around AI. And there's some nominations saying that AI will know when, where, and how to charge better than the EV driver ever will. So the question is, Are the CPOs ready to integrate these vehicle intelligence systems from OEMs and tech giants? Could we actually have predictive routing, shift utilization on how users of networks are over time? Do you actually see any application of AI that is extremely relevant based on all your knowledge of AI today, or is it still more of a fad and buzzword? You know, until reliability, as you mentioned, pricing and unified experience is set in place. And I'll leave it open to whoever wants to get started and grab on this one. Wolf, let's go.
Yeah, I can jump in because it's almost 3 months ago when I had a discussion with Christian at the ICNC conference on AI, especially talking about how can AI define new infrastructure, new services, and so on. So from my point of view, what you can say is lots of these functionalities, what you see in the market with new apps, customer-orientated apps, and these kind of things, they are not completely new. So the processes are already existing, been working since many years. If you make a call to a call center, there's a virtual agent. You will be moved to whatever, even with voice recognition and so on. What's interesting in this discussion right now is what can AI take over from the existing systems. So that means how can the existing systems be optimized? What we see from our CPO customers, that they are quite careful in these sections. So not bringing the whole, how I say, experience in the game. I think it's a 5-step 4 and 4-step back or 3-step back development. What you see, improvement is always working like this. And at the end of the day, to reach 100%, how to say, autonomy on AI, I think you can wait until 2040, something like that. So it's a long way to go, and it's like making sensors intelligent. What we did already years ago, it will take some time. And while you need a good platform you work with, you need a platform which is scalable, and that means handle millions of requests in a second, evaluate how's the state of the charger, how is the state of the, how is it, even the customer, what's going on. So you have so many touch points or points which you can, how to say, evaluate on your platform. So it will take some time to get, how to say, the full spectrum of AI being ready. And maybe Piotr, it's something on your agenda as well. You're a CPO, you know how it's been working, and you know where the faults are coming up or the mission critical things are, how I say, treating you.
I think, talking as a developer, AI could help us much earlier than that. Because if you think, let's take as an example what it takes to build a single AC charging station on a parking space, let's say in downtown Berlin. Yeah? So you make an application for the special use permit, and this application gets put into a paperboard file and travels through 8 different departments of the City Council of Berlin before it gets approved. Now, each of these departments has certain criteria how to approve this charging station. It could have all been absolutely automated with AI because, you know, there are clear rules. So the application could have been decided at the click of a button, and you could get a response the same day. But I think by the time it gets all introduced in the city councils, we will have already enough charging stations, or maybe we would already move to contactless charging or whatever. So let's leave it there. But this could be indeed a game changer. And then, of course, the next step for CPO is what Wulf just mentioned and what is already happening now. Backend providers are experimenting with that. CPOs are experimenting. This is preventive maintenance. Try to get to know when your charging station is going to break down before it actually breaks down. And, you know, even if the best preventive measure nowadays is just to restart the charging station, the restart at the right time saves technician deployment the following day. Yeah, so there is some space to it, but there is still a lot of buzz about it, because we call a lot of things artificial intelligence, which are 5 years ago we just called them machine learning. So
exactly, yeah.
The protocols are a bit older, but it helps. The same as it helps, trying to find the right spots for the charging stations, where we look where people live, how many electric vehicles are being introduced there, what are the charging patterns. I like the statement I heard a couple of years ago on a conference on charging infrastructure in the Netherlands, where someone said, our target has to be that when the last electric vehicle driver comes home and wants to charge, he still finds a charging point. And this is where, for sure, those models can be helpful.
Christian, any final notes on this one, or?
I think we already have heard great statements. Maybe just a more personal perspective. I think AI is very interesting because it creates a level playing field for innovation. And I think that's probably something we still need to better understand. But all of us, including Hubject as well, we are right now trying to drive innovation, but of course it requires collaboration between a lot of stakeholders to make it happen, right? You need to make sure that at least one CPO is implementing a new feature, maybe the hardware manufacturer needs to be involved, the MSPs, and then the OEMs and so on. And of course, that's working intense and every organization is doing it differently. And AI is a possibility to really have a level playing field. You can drive innovation as a company, even without deep knowledge of software development, and be more competitive than all the other companies you're competing with. And I think that is something which will see a bigger impact. Speaking about predictive maintenance, but also, of course, operational processes as well, right? Everyone can do it, and the question is only how will that also impact existing business models? Because of course it will have an impact on all these companies here in this round in one way or another. And I think that's where we need to get more clear. But I believe AI is great. Just not sure how this will work with AI-only companies, because that's a great thing about AI. Everyone can do it, right? Of course, that's now a bit black and white, and it requires some knowledge, but there are so many applications in place which helps you to set up AI-based solutions, even on websites, so you can create your own simple apps by yourself without any knowledge about software development. And I think that will probably have a bigger impact on the way we are doing innovation, not only in our industry, but probably all around our life.
Maybe I have another topic on that. What we have seen in the telco industry as well. We had lots of in the past, I would say in the 2010, 12 to 15, we have seen lots of activities on how I say virtual network operators coming up. So this was also part of a AI-driven business. Or everyone was talking about machine learning, but it was already the first phase of AI. You have seen them growing up. You had lots of organizations been growing up with limited amount of people behind, and at the end of the day, all of them or most of them had been consolidated after a few years. So I think we will gonna see the same trends. There will be some waves of these virtual network operators on the CPO side coming up, and at the end of the day, well, consolidation is been coming up, because they are too far away from the big players in the market. So growth is quite critical if you try to run an organization only on the a virtual agent which is talking to you.
Perfect.
Maybe
Thanks.
we'll talk about this in 2050, but
Exactly.
I would say the first approach will not be successful from my point of view, because it's simply not humanized enough for you to run this process.
Good. We are now hitting the time of the roundtable, the original time of the roundtable. I would say that I would still like to go over the last two questions in a sharp, effective way. Asen has, and both of them are related to the electric vehicle charging consumers. So Hassan asks about the early adopters already being convinced, but the next wave of EV drivers aren't. So from your perspective, what will be your 2 short to mid-term levers that you believe will actually make EV driving more attractive for the skeptical majority? So I would say that would be the question. So in a quick 1-minute answer, Christian, Piotr, Wulf, what would you say to Hassan?
Short answer, that's possible. So I think we require 2 things. First one is reliability-based routing. I think it's key to understand if a charger is working for my vehicle or not, and we have all the data in place, so let's make it happen. The second topic is pricing-based routing, same topic here. If I'm super keen on getting the lowest price for charging, my app should tell me where can I get the best price based on what medium, credit card, app, whatsoever. Right now, that's super complex, and that's why a lot of people are struggling. But we have the data, we have the information, we have the tools. So let's make it happen. Reliability-based routing and pricing-based routing.
From my point of view, intelligent routing is one additional topic because it covers reliability and price. And I would say also from a perspective, kind of how I say a safe routing, that you will not be sent in the next traffic jam. What I have seen in the past with some attempts we had already 5-6 years ago when we did some reservation cases for OEMs. So these failed mainly due to traffic data, which was not, how I say, agnostic enough to use it.
Right. For me, the answer, if I'm allowed to be a bit more emotional, I would appreciate if the bashing stops, especially from the OEM side, to us CPOs. We are not part of the problem. We are part of the solution. And we would like to be appreciated as an equal partner. At the moment, a lot of data is being generated, but we have absolutely no visibility what happens with that data. If a client comes and asks me, why I cannot find your charging station in my SatNav, my answer is, I don't know. I push the data everywhere I can. My data is with Christian. Christian pushes it forward to others. Why it's not in your SatNav? Ask the car manufacturer. So.
Thanks. I think the next question with Balachandra, let's see how to pronounce, is more about, again, the fear with the consumer ecosystem. It is a perception that DC fast chargers deteriorate the battery health much faster than AC slow chargers. He says, as a CPO, how do you manage this challenge? But I would say more like, from your point of view, is this really a challenge, or is it an educational challenge or a perception challenge? Because you know that the technical reality is different. But I don't know if there is any offering answer here by one of you, and if there's anything to complement that is worth it. Otherwise, we go to our final question.
Maybe I can answer one topic, and maybe Piotr will be listening very careful because he drives this car, or still driving the car. So I have a BMW iX3 running since 5 years, or almost 5 years, or 4 years in my fleet, and the car has currently 170 and a few thousand kilometers been running. So I can tell you this car has been mostly used for long haul. That means not much AC charging. So I would say 90% or 95% of all charging sessions were being made by HPC and not by AC chargers. What I have seen from that perspective, how I say the battery went down, I would say on 170,000 kilometer, roughly 1.25%, something like that from the range. Which means from a 428 kilometer range, 1% less, it's 4 kilometers or something like that. So that's the answer on the question. I would say I'm not skeptical. The batteries are even much better than expected from that point.
So that's the engineer's answer, and the emotional answer is we give people choice. We provide them with DC and AC. Simple as that.
That's simple as that. One last one to wrap up, which is because Johanna was talking about the last 10 years, prepared for the next 10. The industry is going back to an exciting time. It's hard to have a crystal ball, especially because everything is moving forward so fast. But what would you say is your boldest prediction for the next 5 to 10 years? And I know it's a little bit of a big ask, the boldest prediction, but just to wrap up on a futuristic note, if you had to make the bold prediction or unconventional prediction that people might not see it, what would that be?
So from the
here, so reaching mass market in 2030 and reaching 40% market share of EVs in 2035. Based on Green Deal targets, we probably will miss a bit the 50%, unfortunately. But 40% is still massively high. So therefore, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's not easy to get there for us all together, but I think that's a great thing about our industry, that we still try to find new ways to work together, improve customer experience, as we discussed today, and also reflect on the needs of the different members of the ecosystem, right? CPOs have slightly different needs than OEMs, as we just discussed, and MSPs and any other stakeholder. So, but mass market will reach 2030 latest and 40% market share of EVs in 2035.
Thank you. Wulf, Piotr?
Well, bearing in mind an average car in Germany takes some 20 years cradle to scrap. 10 years might be too short time, but I'm a strong believer that we will see a very fast uptake of electric vehicles, because there is no better technology. So it's not a bold statement, I know, not in this round, but I believe there is no other way. Yeah.
Thanks. Wulf, bring it home.
So we're gonna see lots of very cheap EVs coming up until 2035, I would say, with huge ranges, where no one talks about range anxiety anymore in Europe, as well as, I would say, batteries which are more efficient than the existing ones. So we have seen lots of improvement on battery. That's what we haven't seen on H2, and that's also the reason why I would say, especially on the EV side, H2 has lost the game.
All right. Thank you, Piotr, Christian, Wulf. Thank you so much for the flexibility, for your insights, and for the exciting roundtable. Really appreciate it. Thanks again for joining the Fastlane Summit, and have a fantastic of the rest of the week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, also thanks from my side for completing the journey with us today. And sorry again, apologies to everyone for the small technical hurdle that we needed to overcome here.
It is true, but you know what I say, Marco? It's not always what happens, but how you react to what happens. And we do need to have a hiccup every year, so perhaps we are the challenge here. We are the ones that are bringing the bad luck, because last year we had some other situations completely different. We thought nothing could go wrong this year. But yeah, sometimes, there is a big red button, and if maybe the color is red for a reason, that's maybe the lesson here.
Yeah, we still have challenges as in the e-mobility that what you can wrap up from the last 45 minutes.
From my end, I think it was great to see that there is momentum for the industry. I think one of the big takeaways is exactly like this final part, that there is still confidence that this will become a mass market. And I think that's the best message for the end of the day for me. And as Alejandra, I think I'm pronouncing correctly. I'm really hope so.
Yes. Please let us know if we did something wrong with the pronunciation of your name.
Yeah. Resilience is the word of the day. On my side, thank you all for the patience and for the flexibility, especially with the hiccups and the changes. But we hope that you have one great takeaway that you can utilize on your next year plan, on your next days, and that makes you confident that this is the right industry to be in. That is on my end. Marco, any final words from your end?
I would also say it's still very exciting times in the e-mobility sector industry. What I find really cool is that this summit shows that different parties are in a close exchange. Yeah, so they're very open. They kind of try to overcome the challenges that all are facing, yeah, kind of. And I really appreciate that we had such kind of honest and open discussions here. And I'm pretty much looking forward to already the next years and how we do it. So how the story evolves.
Thank you. All right. With that, we wrap up the Fastlane Summit 2nd edition. Marco, again, a pleasure to host it with you. Again, thanks everyone on the audience to join. And this time, for real, yes, you can press the red button and the confirmation of the red button.
Thanks, Hugo, for joining us here, and thanks to everyone.
You.
Yeah, so have a nice afternoon and evening. See you guys.
Thank you all. Have a great day.